listening to the Mind Manual Podcast, episode 47, The Freedom to be Found in the Spiritual Self. If you want a particular result in your life, but you're unable to get it, tune in to start training your brain and expanding your emotional intelligence to unlock the most powerful and underutilized performance tool that we have. It's the most important work you could do because it affects every area of your life. So much of our life is lived through the egoic mind, which I like to think of as the singular and earthly substitute for the soul, which forms part of the collective consciousness. The concept that we are a spiritual being having a human experience is one that is shared across many wisdom traditions and religions. But how often do we align with this way of being? For the most part, we are led by the roles that we play, and we create an identity of the self and get stuck in this level of awareness, in seeing others as separate, as a threat, as unfavorable, or otherwise as it suits our agenda and aligns with the roles that we play throughout our life. What if, though, we were to see through these roles and look to the soul that is beneath it all, that sits quietly and observes our performance and all of the thoughts that our mind offers us, the filters of the lens we see others and the rest of the world through, the labels and the judgments that we create? This is the human experience we get hooked into relating and identifying with. Often those who experience life-shattering and altering events will be forced into elevating this consciousness to that at the soul level because their life, their body, or their mind become limited or trapped by circumstances that have severely impacted their functioning. And their only way out of that, whilst continuing on this earthly journey, is to rise to meet with their soul and start observing and participating with life at that level. This requires us to see through the shell of the body and all the maladaptive behaviours and ways that have become entrenched into our lives in order for the human form and ego elements to survive. I believe at our core and earthly beginnings in being birthed into this incarnation that we splintered off from, this collective consciousness and intelligence, into our separate earthly beings. But our core hasn't really changed. We are all still part of the whole. But rarely do we practice reconnecting to this part of ourselves or others. Instead, we are dominated by the insecurities, the illusions, and the frailties of the ego, which is designed for us to orientate ourselves within this human experience. Suffering comes to visit us, however, when we over-identify at this level. There are many instances where we look upon others and use them as tools in the quest of achieving an end goal for whatever we've deemed worthy to attain. Often the role of connection with these people is considered superfluous to our needs and requirements. What I want to propose, however, is that it's both crucial and central to what we ultimately crave and need. We just don't realize it. It's a pillar of lifestyle medicine. Humans are wired to connect, and this connection also affects our physical health. From psychological theories to recent research, there is significant evidence that social support and feeling connected can help people maintain a healthy body mass index, control blood sugars, improve cancer survival, decrease cardiovascular mortality, decrease depressive symptoms, mitigate post-traumatic stress disorder symptoms, and improve overall mental well-being. The opposite of connection, social isolation, has demonstrated to have many negative effects on health and can increase depressive symptoms as well as mortality. In a paper published by Stanford Medicine on connectedness and health, They found that people who feel more connected to others have lower levels of anxiety and depression. They also have higher self-esteem, greater empathy for others. They're more trusting and cooperative. And as a consequence, others are more open to trusting and cooperating with them. In other words, connectedness generates a positive feedback loop of social, emotional, and physical well-being. Unfortunately, the opposite is also true for those who lack social connectedness. Low levels of social connection are associated with declines in physical and psychological health, as well as a higher likelihood for antisocial behaviour that leads to further isolation. And in clinical studies, they found that higher levels of spirituality were associated with higher levels of well-being, positive affect, purpose in life, positive relations with others, personal growth, self-acceptance, environmental mastery, autonomy, with some of these associations stronger among women than in men. Einolf in 2013 found that daily spiritual experiences were significant predictors of volunteering, charitable giving, and helping others. And in 350 BC, Aristotle wrote that the highest human good was the activity of the soul in accordance with virtue, and if there be more than one virtue, in accordance with the best and most complete. Rudas in 2019 found that high spiritual experiences enhanced life satisfaction over time in cancer survivors having low satisfaction at baseline. Additional work showed that spiritual coping influenced the personal growth of cancer patients, with effects moderated by spiritual mindfulness. Addiction recovery programs such as Alcoholics Anonymous are known to promote spiritual but not religious beliefs, and reflecting this emphasis, McClure and Wilkinson in 2020 showed that frequency of attendance in such groups was positively and significantly associated with being spiritual but not religious. Connection is medicine, physically, mentally, and emotionally. It's an innate quality of our soul that drives a spiritual yearning to be connected with the whole, to embody the yin and the yang and all its opposites. This balance is seen to influence health and order within an individual, within a society, and the entire universe, which is governed by a cosmic duality. If all things exist as inseparable and contradictory opposites, then we must also embrace the whole, the constant path of unity if we are seeking balance in our lives. A single pursuit is therefore unbalanced by nature. Whenever we push back or resist life's contrasts and we fail to accept the good with the bad, then we disconnect from one in pursuit of the other. We resist the ebb and go with the flow and become out of sync with the rhythm of life. It's this resistance and rejection that creates our suffering. If we were to start seeing everything and everyone through this new spiritual lens and remember, so to speak, along with the other parts and beings of the whole, with a loving conscious awareness of this unifying force, then we transcend all the limitations and weaknesses of the man-made self and see through to others, to their soul, as opposed to their role and the part that they play in this life. Then it would help to restore and fulfill this longing we crave but yet can't quite grasp in what really lies beneath it all, the freedom found in the spiritual self. So where are the freedoms to be found in the spiritual self? I see a lot of contrasts in the differences and tendencies amongst even my own children. Two of them are what I would describe as high achievers tending towards perfectionists. They're highly driven and will pursue a particular goal with dedication, discipline, and precision. Along with this territory, I've noticed, though, that they both have never really fostered any real close connections with friends. And when they are around friends, then a fair amount of downtime is needed in between, almost as a respite to recharge. I guess it has been used as a definition of what an introvert is, in needing to recharge away from others. Contrast this with another son I have who wears his heart out on the sleeve. He's generally very messy, no real attention to detail, but thrives when he's with his friends and loves everyone. So his friends are around all the time, and I've just loved growing up with them. Some of the differences I've observed is that he's very comfortable in his own skin around them. There are no expectations about what needs to be done or how they might perceive him. What you see is what you get. And so he's connecting with them from a real, genuine, authentic space of heart to heart or soul to soul. Part of what makes the other way so exhausting, I think, is in standing behind a mask of trying to be what they perceive the other might want them to see or want them to do. In other words, in presenting the persona of the incarnated version of who they're supposed to be, as opposed to identifying more at the soul level of who they really are, which is in the absence of the judgments, the expectations, and the insecurities. A soulful connection doesn't require anything more than the recognition of who they really are, which is a remembering and reunification process with all the parts from the whole, from the one source energy, which everything is, in all that is seen and unseen. We are both literally and figuratively the same source of energy in motion. If you've ever studied physics at the atomic or even photon level, and you understand some of the quantum mechanics involved, it's seriously mind-blowing stuff. So it becomes a freedom from who we think we need to be, a freedom from the labels and the judgments, a freedom to step into the essence of who you really are at the level of the soul without all the other limitations that we place on ourselves and also demand of others. If we were to view all the irritations and annoying behaviours of others when they show up in a less than ideal manner as a natural adaptation to whatever trauma or biopsychosocial influences that they've had throughout this human experience, and resist the temptation of reducing them solely to this manifestation, then we could free ourselves from the disturbances and all the fuss we get caught up in with the resistance and rejection to what is, which in simple terms is the very nature of suffering. Just knowing behind the cloak of the human form, they are still the emanation from the one source energy that we can still connect with. And this will soften our response to a more understanding and compassionate state of being. A great exercise to practice as you walk through life and past the next stranger is this loving awareness, to open that heart-to-heart connection, a meeting of your soul with theirs. Try to see yourself in them, whether that be if you walked in their shoes, were born into their family, or had a life filtered through their lens or the same circumstances. You may well be just as they are. How could you guarantee that you would be any different? And what you'll find, if you're brutally honest with yourself, is that ultimately the hit of sneaky pleasure that you might feel in that moment of superiority is but a fleeting uptick compared to the longer lasting feeling of gratitude and compassion that your mind and body will also thrive on. This is where harmony, health, and happiness can be found, in the joy and benefits of aligning our mind, body, and soul with the greater universal power found in the constructive energy of the sympathetic flow of life. So go and grab yourself some connection at the soul level. We need it. We thrive on it. We are at one with it. And have a beautiful day. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, you have to come and check out Mind Scholars. It's my monthly coaching membership where we take all of this work to a much deeper level. We study it and then apply it to the everyday in every way. So if you want to take your life to a whole new level, join me in Mind Scholars over at themindmanual.com/join. I look forward to seeing you there.